What's up, nerds? This is the Align in the Stars podcast. I'm Jordan.
I'm Matt.
And we're here to talk to you about some Star Wars and some Star Trek tonight. So, it's kind of cool. We are recording in a different space tonight.
Yes, I just got an apartment.
Yeah.
And so certain circumstances involving patrons at an establishment.
Yeah. Apparently opening the doors to the public and letting them dine in. They want to keep doing that. And so,
You mean after a whole year of not doing that, people want to be in a restaurant?
Kind of weird.
Weird.
You know? Yeah, it's really strange. And so we are doing it in a new environment, which is pretty cool. We are standing, which is very strange. I'm standing here awkwardly leaning over this mic and
hands behind your back.
Hands behind my back.
For the audio listener, which I mean all of you guys there's never any visual part of this podcast.
Right.
We're both standing over by a kitchen counter with IKEA glassware.
Yeah, so our microphones are posted up on top of some IKEA glassware, and we're standing around a sink.
And my surface is the closest it's ever been to a water source.
Yes. So it's pretty awesome, actually. It's interesting. We're both kind of in this spot where Matt just got an apartment. I'm looking for an apartment as well, and so the idea is we're gonna probably have kind of a permanent place where we're going to be recording. I think it'll probably be at my place because I'll be living solo. It's a little bit easier that way. Don't have to worry about other roommates and such. But it is pretty cool. It's kind of like a little bit of a milestone. We've done 6 episodes?
This is going to be...
Or 5?
5. That'll be 5 counting 0.
Okay, yeah,
so
5.
So this is episode 5.
Episode 5. So, yeah, I mean, we're kind of moving forward a little bit and getting a new spot. And so... as usual, one thing that I'm trying to do is I've been listening to some other podcasts and trying to learn my segues and all that jazz, and I'm already failing terribly. But definitely want to kind of talk about, what we've been doing as usual. It's probably not a whole lot of it this time around, although Matt is definitely moving forward. I've been watching a little bit more Star Trek and Star Wars of late. So what you been doing?
As far as Star Trek goes, I've entered into season 7 of Voyager.
Nice.
It feels like it's not that long ago, but at the same time, it's been a journey.
It's been a journey for sure. I mean, when you told me you got to season 7 yesterday, I was like, holy shit. I mean, Unimatrix Zero is playing, and we run a restaurant. I'm not going to say exactly where, but it was a really busy day at work yesterday. And we were kind of slaving away and grinding, and those of you who do know us personally know where we're at, and it was one of those days. It was a Friday, and but the episode was playing in the background, and I just kept hearing things, and it's such an interesting story regarding the Borg, so it's cool to hear that. But then you've been getting through the meat of the good of Voyager, and just hearing Lieutenant Paris being second in charge of the ship for a second there, Chakotay putting him there.
That's a big character development and trust in him for going from an ex-convict to temporary first officer.
Well, and both of them are ex-cons.
Yes,
one thing I am curious, and I really kind of wish that they would have talked a little bit of it, and I get why they didn't, but what happened to the Maquis that were on Voyager when they got back to Earth? What happened to them? I know that Chakotay eventually became captain of Voyager, and he had a full Starfleet commission as captain, but what about Torres? What about the rest of them? Did they get regular commissions back in Starfleet?
My theory, and I guess hope, is that they got pardoned Janeway after coming back. Would be hey, these guys deserve a pardon for all the shit that they saw in our voyage back. And then they just had the option whether or not they wanted to join Starfleet proper or
go on their merry ways.
Exactly.
Go back to the Badlands in that area and continue to fight against the Cardassians, which would be really interesting, actually.
Right. I haven't done much in the comics department yet, and I did pick back up KOTOR. I took a break because of life
Yeah.
events.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I'm on Dantooine,
Nice.
and I've become a Jedi Padawan,
Nice. Yeah.
and I also themed one entire level up on persuasion because I needed to talk to that fallen Jedi who who killed her master.
That's right.
And I had to talk her back without killing her because I'm like, nah, that's the dark side points. So I am like, okay, I'm theming one level up on everything persuasion.
There you go.
And eventually, after multiple tries, I got through.
Yeah, and what's interesting about KOTOR is it's D&D, you know, so it's all on dice rolls. And I'm curious, you know, I'm going to get into some news here in just a little bit. We'll talk about it, but I'm curious how they're going to be handling that going forward because RPGs don't follow D&D rules anymore. Back in the day, they used to. Like back in the day, it was like a very common thing for all RPGs to be based on Dungeons.
It is a whole nother like learning curve on playing KOTOR and having trying to separate it from the action RPG stuff that we're used to. Yeah,
turn-based is very interesting, and it's turn-based, it's turn action-based, which is very interesting, and like it really getting into understanding that game takes a long time to like really dig in, and if you want to become an expert and really spec up. But I mean, I think it's interesting like how you were playing it in the beginning. You were trying to play it as a typical RPG where you're just trying to have a well-balanced all-around character. That game is not meant that way. It's meant for your companions, and it is so fascinating. And I love the fact that you're playing through it right now. It is fantastic.
It's
about damn time.
Yeah, it's
this game was like
nuts.
11. You were 11 when this game came out.
Yeah. I mean, I also feel sorry for the droid who was the replacement for the husband.
Oh, that is a rough story. What'd you do?
I killed him.
Yes, good.
I'm like, I can't return you. I'm like, I'm ending like what like we could argue is a sentient life.
Yeah,
but
that's just not okay. That's really rapey
that's
and weird.
Really weird.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna free you from that because there isn't an option where I can say you can go ahead and live and just and give me proof that you would have died.
Well, and you know, looking at a basic human level as well, she's never gonna get beyond the death of her husband by fucking a droid.
No.
It's so weird. Oh, video games from the early 2000s. What were you thinking? Yeah, anything else?
I think that's
you've been really wrapped up. Like, I mean, I'm in the very beginning process of like kind of looking for an apartment. We're standing in his new apartment with ridiculous amounts of IKEA boxes to the left of me. It's pretty dope. For me on my side, you know, after finishing Master and Apprentice, I wasn't going to try to lie to myself, and I did purchase Dooku. I can't get Audible to work for some reason on my phone, so I might actually have you take a look at that on Tuesday. I'm just not quite sure what's up with that, but I do own it. The first two High Republic books should be arriving on my doorstep tomorrow.
Nice.
So I'm definitely going to be reading those. I've been bouncing around on Star Trek a little bit. Like kind of between Discovery, Picard, and Lower Decks, just kind of some of the newer stuff. And then just I'm making my usual trip around with Rebels. I really enjoy just putting, like, since the beginning of this podcast, you know, all these podcasts that we've done, I've probably watched Rebels like 3 times in a row, all the way through, which blows my mind because you've still only watched it the one time. You really need to get into it.
Yeah.
There's just so much in there. And the thing that I'm really kind of taking from it right now, even on this watch through, is how bad of a job they did with incorporating Vader into the story. He's there in the first episode. He's there right there at the very beginning opening before you even get the credit, you know, the you know, before you even get that, like you got Vader telling the Grand Inquisitor, you got to go snatch up kids.
Yeah.
Well, that story is never really fleshed out the rest of the way. And they really struggled. I was glad when Thrawn was introduced at the end of season 3.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought that he made such a much more perfect bad guy, and that's exactly where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
The Thrawn is unlike any Star Wars bad guy.
Yeah.
You want to like him. You want to love him. And the book's written, Timothy Zahn writes those books so well. And, those books are written from the perspective as Thrawn and the Empire is the good guy.
Yeah.
And you can't help but like it. And so the beauty of Rebels and the handling of Thrawn is that it was done with Timothy Zahn consulting. It's Thrawn. And so my question as a preface for later is going to be a Thrawn question for Matt. Right. I've been really kind of obsessing about it a little bit. And what I haven't told you is I have purchased the last book in the first Thrawn trilogy.
Nice.
So,
nice.
As I'm really looking forward to getting out, I live with my best friends, and they definitely gave me a chance to get on my feet, and it's time definitely to do that. And I'm really looking forward to having that time just to kind of come home and don't turn on the TV or don't go socialize or whatever. Yeah. Just sit down with a good book. And I read a ridiculous amount of it. So that's kind of, where I'm at with things. And, it's been kind of we got some great news. I'm about to drop some news on you guys here in a second. You guys have probably all heard it. I'm not deluding myself into thinking that you guys haven't heard it. But unless there's anything else, I guess news would be a good place to kind of go.
Yeah, I know the next 2 issues of the High Republic comic and the Adventures comic come out on the 3rd, I think. So by next podcast, the next podcast, I probably will have read them. Nice. And I'll go, they were good.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that we can do when I come around, when we record again, Dooku will be I should have finished Dooku. And we can definitely talk a little more around that, because I'm really excited about reading it, and not reading it, listening to it. I want to hear the voice actors on this. I'm really interested in the Ventress story that is in there. Ventress is one of my favorite bad guys and bad chicks.
She gets her own character development and is able to split away from her initial role as just apprentice, just like Maul did.
Right.
She and Maul were able to step away from their designated role in the dark side to be their own person, and both found different elements of growth in that. Ventress more so because she was a former Padawan.
Padawan. Yeah, I mean, she had touched both sides of the light. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Ventress' story is so
I'm excited.
Freaking cool.
I'm excited. So next time we podcast, it is going to be... We're going to be talking Dooku for sure. Even if I haven't finished it, because knowing me, this is me.
Yeah.
But, listening to it, and once again, with 10 hours of commuting a week, I think the total book is only 8-9 hours read. So.
It's not that long.
Yeah, so I probably won't read it the whole time. But anyway, so kind of getting into some news. This is kind of a new thing that we've done. I'll only do this if there's relevant stuff coming up. So I guess the first thing, information that dropped yesterday, which is really dope, we get Bad Batch on May the 4th.
Which is so freaking cool.
We talked at the end of the Mandalorian podcast, we're going to have to wait a year, this sucks. And no.
There's not going to be much of a gap at all.
No, Dave Filoni's nah, bro, we got it. And so... they did a little bit of teasing. I did a little looking into it, and apparently there's supposed to be some pretty major cameos in there, cartoon cameos, right? But I mean, we could see some pretty crazy stuff, flashbacks and callbacks is what they're going to be kind of looking towards.
Yeah.
And so, great news. It couldn't have but much better news on that front. There's no Star Trek for the next little while. There's no Star Wars, but now there is.
Yeah.
So on that front, we're really excited about the fact that we get Bad Batch.
It came out of the blue too.
Yeah.
It was only 2-3 days ago that we got the news, and it's just good to know that it's not going to be freaking forever.
We get to
have Star Wars content outside of the books and outside the comic.
Well, and we also, we're basically seeing the continuation of the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And it's with the same art style
Yeah.
as well, which is really cool. And so it is fantastic news. Like the fact that there's going to be content, you know, like we're getting spoiled now at this point.
Yeah, and you also said that the Star Trek properties aren't that far away either.
No, they're not. So on the other side of things, obviously, you know, if anybody had watched the Super Bowl and if you're into Star Trek at all, you know that CBS All Access is where you find all that. That's where Discovery, Picard, Lower Decks, the short treks and all that jazz is right now. Starting March 4th, you know, it's switching over to Paramount Plus, going with like the Disney Plus and the AMC Plus and all that. Like it following a trend, yada yada yada. But the cool thing that is being revealed right now is that Star Trek is actually the flagship show for Paramount Plus. And the news that was dropped in the last couple of days was that they're planning on having over the next, like, it's going to take a minute because they're still filming. We're going to talk about that here in a second. But basically every quarter, there's going to be a new show running. Not necessarily a new show as in a premiere,
right?
But we'll get Discovery in a quarter, then we get Picard in a quarter, and then we get Strange New Worlds, and then we get Lower Decks, and then who knows?
Who knows? You know, yeah, I like hearing Strange New Worlds. I'm like, yes, please, yes.
Yeah, I
my
know.
God, yes.
So I guess the cool news is Picard Season 2, Discovery Season 4, and Strange New Worlds Season 1 are all filming right now.
Yeah.
So they're basically like they're saying that Strange New Worlds hasn't begun filming, but they're filming. There's no way. I'm really kind of curious to see. Like, I think Strange New Worlds is the first one we're gonna see. It's kind of what they're kind of hinting at with all the news drops.
Yeah.
Which is exciting because they're telling us that, you know, Discovery is like next January.
Yeah.
Right. So that's 2022.
Yeah.
Right. So that means we get Strange New Worlds at some point this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see it in September. You know, like we see September as Strange New Worlds and then Discovery and then Picard. And
yeah.
Wow.
That's a lot of content.
It's a lot of content. And then, you know, all of a sudden we're hearing the Section 31 rumors starting to swirl around and Michelle Yeoh doing her part. And like, there's been people talking about how they've been seeing Shazad Latif, who plays Lieutenant Tyler, hanging around Toronto. He is a Canadian actor. So, you know, who knows? But
right.
It really is kind of interesting that like Star Trek is going into full production right now. And, you know, I mean, we're starting to see a little bit of the coming out of the other side from the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Like, life is attempting to return to normal.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that, like, the hardest part about this is, like, there's now this long delay. For us nerds, like, in the prime of everything right now, I mean, we got Star Trek and Star Wars going nuts right now.
Yeah.
Like, we literally, I mean, we talked about it. I mean, there's so much.
Yeah.
There's so much. And we have to wait just a little longer. But only until May? You know, like, how many episodes are we going to get of Bad Batch? Probably going to go the 12 episode route.
Probably 12 episodes. Probably the same we got from season 7.
Right. Yeah. So 3 or 4 story arcs, right? Which is fantastic. I really loved the format of season 7 of Clone Wars. I thought that it was just handled really well. It fleshed out entire stories.
Yeah.
Right. We got to see, you know, the continuation of the Bad Batch. We got to see Ahsoka's story. We got to see, you know, the Siege of Mandalore, which we talked about and we said again, it is some of the best Star Wars ever made. So now we get to have Bad Batch, and then we have all this happening with Star Trek. Star Trek is teasing, like, there's all sorts of stuff. We're coming up here soon on, you know, the short Trek season. Hopefully they're going to be doing something with that. I'd expect, you know, Paramount Plus, we're recording on February 27th right now. That means that Paramount Plus drops next Thursday on the 4th of March.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised either on the March 4th or like right around that time they're going to be dropping some news on us when it comes to Star Trek.
That would be cool.
And I'll say that it might be a good foray into me maybe doing a little bit of solo stuff if I have time. I know with Matt right now, he's moving and looking at these boxes. That is a lot of building to do. But it might be a good solo venture. Like if something comes up and I find that, it's worthy of like putting out there, I definitely will. But, news wise or anything like that, if like it's exciting, we're definitely going to be talking about it. And so, beyond that, it's a good time for to be a nerd. And so it's kind of what's going on in the world of Star Wars and Star Trek with news. I mean, when we sat and I said I wanted to talk a little bit about the controversy with The Mandalorian. I don't know how to quite feel about that. So what's happening right now is politics are not what we're going to be talking about here. But in case you aren't aware, Gina Carano, who portrayed Cara Dune, was fired from The Mandalorian and Disney for her comments revolving not wearing masks and President Trump and yada yada yada.
The big lies.
Yeah, exactly. And, everybody's got a right to an opinion. I don't like cancel culture. That's what this is cancel culture working in. And you can even argue that cancel culture really doesn't exist. But the problem that I have is just like how much negative energy it kind of is surrounding Star Wars about it. And what's happening right now, not to go too far into the political side of things.
Sure.
Senator Ted Cruz is supporting and calling out Disney and saying that they shouldn't be firing her for her political views. And if you're not aware, Senator Cruz decided to, go to Cancun while his constituents were freezing last week in a 100-year snowstorm. So, it's messy. And it's hard to want to talk about. It's hard to even pay attention to because in the end, I really liked her character. I think her character was great. She portrayed that character perfectly.
Yeah.
She is.
It goes into this. Now, I don't like using the word cancel culture.
Right.
That is deeply embedded in right-wing speech.
Correct. It is such a right-wing thing. Yeah,
it is. I hate it. And
it's
the
gross.
thing is I can understand people's outrage, and I also agree I don't like her views.
Yeah, same.
They're bad views.
They're in not, bad taste. Everything is bad about it. Yes.
But
that is just our opinion as well.
But that being said, this isn't the first time that, and it's not going to be the last, where actors are shit people.
Yeah.
I mean, key one, the guy in Godfather.
Oh, Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a piece of trash.
He's a piece of trash.
Yeah.
Terrible person. Great actor. He did the role amazing.
Yeah.
And so you can love the thing that is in it.
Yeah, love the thing, don't love the person, and that is an entirely
which is
okay
why
thing.
I don't follow her.
Yeah.
That's why the official Twitter doesn't follow her.
Correct.
For full clarification, I run Twitter.
Yep, and I do a shitty job of running our Facebook.
Facebook does a shitty job of running Facebook.
Very true.
And so I will not fully go political on
smart
on our Twitter page.
Yeah.
But I'm also not going to give voice to stuff that is hurtful, harmful, degrading to groups of people, stability, that kind of stuff.
Right. Well,
that's not a forum, that's not a platform I want to raise up. And again, this also being a combination of Star Trek.
One of the
inclusivity.
IDIC is one of the founding tenets of Star Trek. Infinite diversity in infinite combinations.
Yes.
Meaning everything, everyone All.
Yeah.
Nothing more. Right? And I wanted to talk a little bit about it, and we did. I think it's disappointing. It's disappointing to see negative news surrounding one of my favorite shows of all time. I'm hoping that Disney is able to fix it, but this is Disney. So, we really enjoyed when we asked each other the questions last time, and thought it made for some pretty good content.
Yeah.
And so,
I went first last time, so how about
you
start
here,
things off?
that's you're making me ask the question that I've been struggling with remembering all day. Okay, so I said earlier I wanted to talk about Thrawn.
Yes.
And specifically some of the news surrounding lately that they've been looking for an actor to portray
Yes.
live action Thrawn.
Yes.
So, what do you see Thrawn's role being going forward? So, we're gonna assume, right? Let me lay a bit.
This is speculation. This is going into.
But this is speculation. Yeah. But this is not so much speculation in the sense of we're theorizing.
Right.
This is all based on what we know. Okay, I want you to use what we know about Thrawn from the books.
We're towing the line here.
We are, but I think the question has a little bit of merit.
Okay.
Because I really do think that, in this case, we don't know what shows are coming up. We know that the Ahsoka series is probably going to deal with Ahsoka looking for Ezra, right? Last time we saw Ezra was with Thrawn, right? And so the question I have, really, because I find that Ezra is such a fascinating character.
Mm-hmm.
And I see Ezra and Thrawn as being opposite sides
of the same coin.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what is Thrawn's role going to be?
What time frame are we putting this in?
So I think that it has to be based on, what we've seen from The Mandalorian, specifically the episode The Jedi with Ahsoka. That's 5 years after the Battle of Jakku, right? So it has to be sometime after that point. I would assume. So if we were to say from that moment, if this is where the theorizing comes in, right?
Yes.
So the last time we see her, she's walking away from the Razor Crest.
Mm-hmm.
She had just completed and gotten some information on where Thrawn is. Mm-hmm. We're assuming, from what we're assuming is the Night Sister. I'm not quite sure. But the last time we see her is in that case. Say she then, at that point, that's when she meets up with Sabine, what we see in the last scene of Rebels, right? Or somewhere along that line, somewhere in that time.
Somewhere in that before or after, yeah.
Before or after, right? But so somewhere in the 5 to 8 year range after the fall of the Empire. Last time we saw Thrawn, he was on his Star Destroyer, right? Mm-hmm. Being pulled by the Purgles.
Yes.
Through subspace.
Purgles is a way too cute name for those creatures.
Yeah, they're pretty brutal, dude. They're really brutal.
Purgles, I instantly think of something small and fuzzy.
Yeah, the Zilla Beast is a badass name. Yeah. It really is. And so the Purgles.
Purgle.
I know. You think of porgs, right? When you hear Purgles, you think of porgs, not giant space wheels that are capable of faster than light speed. Which is dope, by the way. Yeah. But so, it's in that time frame. So about 5 to 7 years after the end, once again, we are definitely towing the line here. But the reason I'm asking the question is because we're going to see, we got the new trilogy, the Thrawn trilogy coming out here soon, right? Or that, am I wrong about that?
Or there's going to be another, because I've read the 4th book, that deals with before the events of the first trilogy.
Got it. Okay, so before he came out to known space when he came from just the Ascendancy space.
Yes, at least that's the first book.
That's right, the first book. Yeah, because I did hear a little bit of that while you were listening to it at work. Yeah. So we know, in that one, I guess that trilogy is just a prequel.
I think so. At least the first book was.
So we're gonna get basically a big story about Thrawn, and I do see the live action being kind of like the third act of Thrawn. Mm-hmm. Now the question is,
yes,
Is Thrawn a bad guy? Or is Thrawn the person that we see in the second book? Where, like, when he first meets Anakin,
Right.
where he's only there for the chiss.
Yeah, he's only there to
Remember,
scout. He's only here to scout out.
Right. So remember, the whole point of him joining up with the Empire
was because it was the strongest option at that time. The Republic was too weak.
Correct.
To face off against. I'm blanking out on.
I can't think of the name as well. But yeah.
So, and it goes all the way to book 3, dealing with that.
Right. So is he a bad guy? Do you think that Thrawn, in the end, because I never really have looked at Thrawn as a bad guy.
No.
And, what if he's not a bad guy? Like, do you look at him as a bad guy?
No. He's absolutely a good guy.
Morally dark.
Doing things for the right reason. Valuing life.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing with the mining moon. The bowl hair cut chick in Rebels.
Arinda Price.
Yes, that's her. Yeah, her where her parents were.
That's right.
That whole thing, high body count, that was because of Arinda.
Yeah. Arinda was woof.
Yeah.
Something.
So, and he despises that. That was marked as an achievement for him.
Yeah.
No, he's not a bad guy, and he fully admits the wrongs of the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And to the point saying that the Empire is only as good as its leader, is if Palpatine isn't going to live forever.
Right.
So if he can be replaced by someone who is more compassionate, more willing to negotiate to peace, that the Empire is a good system, and he believes in that.
Right.
So is he a bad guy? No, he knows its flaws,
mm-hmm.
and he thinks he can make a difference in that, and that is commendable.
Yeah.
Because I mean, look, the Empire did bad stuff. It also did bring stability,
and that's, I mean, the old joke is, right,
the Empire did nothing wrong.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, and so. Yeah, I mean, the reason I ask is because I'm curious what Thrawn we're going to see. I mean, obviously, so what we do know, right, like, Ahsoka is looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Yes.
Still referring to him as Grand
Admiral.
Admiral Thrawn. Now, obviously, the chick who is running that place, I can't think of her name off the top of my head, they're doing something. They're doing something. And once again, this goes back to the bigger picture. I think that Gideon only had like a very small part to play in the grand scheme.
Yeah.
Grand Admiral is one of the few things that outranks a Moff.
Yeah.
Like one of the very few things, just only a Grand Moff, Tarkin, outranked him.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious to know, like, I mean, do we see him still being an antagonist in some way, or are we going to see more of a, like, Thrawn and Ezra pairing up to try to fix, like, I would love to see a Thrawn and Ezra buddy story.
Buddy cop, yeah.
I really would, just because, like, we haven't seen them for years.
Yeah.
And then we get this older Ezra and an older Thrawn, and they're just, like, going through their, like, you get almost like a Book and Burnham sort of like feel, where they just keep referencing little things that have happened here and there.
That's the thing, because so hearing all this in Mandalorian means that Thrawn is returning to his original time period.
Right, exactly.
He is
post Empire.
He's back in post Empire timeline.
Ooh.
So I haven't read the original books.
Yeah. Oh, you should.
And
that's making me think, dude. So, I mean, is she still referring to him as Grand Admiral?
That's the thing, is I don't know if the whole Yoda thing messes with me, because if that, like the Baby Yoda, baby Grogu, yeah. Mess with me, because if that's part of Thrawn's plan, then then you get into that gray area. Because what I would like to see is we don't hear anything about Thrawn, Ahsoka in the sequel trilogy. There's obviously a reason why.
Right.
It's the movies. Who are these characters? They only get a brief mention.
Right.
I'm wondering if they treat the original era, we're going to call this whole period up to before the sequel trilogy, as their own characters, the way they did with the prequels, where anyone who is alive by the time that Luke shows up on scene has to be indisposed.
Yeah, there has to be something in there, and I would be fine with that.
That's fine if you want to keep that as the way to have a clean reason on and segmented in time periods to keep things orderly. All right, I don't have any issue with that. So, a couple things come to mind. One, Ezra and Thrawn are stuck together, and they're thrown out to who knows where.
Like somewhere deep in the unknown regions.
Possibly, since Ezra is force sensitive. He could act as a Skywalker.
He can act as a Skywalker, correct. Yeah.
And
interesting, because
they're so deep in unknown region, it's possible that they either come across the enemy that I can't think of, other remnant of that, or Ezra sees wisdom in Thrawn's plan and they go to the Chiss Ascendancy.
Right. I could see Ezra he was very much impressioned by Maul. So
in which case, if we go with going to the Ascendancy, two other things come to mind. One is that means Ezra and Thrawn can't return to the known galaxy in certain circumstances, because in the event of, say, Thrawn goes, okay, what, the Empire is weak, the Empire has fallen, maybe the Chiss Ascendancy comes in. Well, we can't do that story because we have the New Republic.
And it can't be, he cannot be the start of the First Order, because that's Ray Sloan and what's his face? Huxley.
Brendel Hux.
Brendel Hux, yeah. Not Huxley, Hux. Yeah.
So the other thing is you have a whole bunch of force-sensitive children in the Chiss Ascendancy who are only force-sensitive
until they reach puberty, right?
Until they reach between the ages of 12 and 14.
Yeah. Ooh, interesting.
You have, and Thrawn has shown genuine good faith. I think it's shown good faith to people in both enemies and allies, in the known galaxy, to go have a role in the Chiss Ascendancy.
Yes.
A thought is, what if Ezra in Adventures with Thrawn gets on his good side, and there's a story that takes place in the Chiss Ascendancy involving Ezra and either technology or the force sense of children. I don't know where. I can't. Because there's not a whole bunch there to go off. Like, they are just literally lost in space.
Literally.
Like, anything could happen. And bringing it back, maybe actually, and this just came to mind, it's 5 years after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Ezra could have come back already.
True.
And Thrawn takes up as a segment of the Empire.
Right.
That their time spent in the unknown region doesn't affect Thrawn a whole bunch. I do think that they are a perfect pair mentally for each other.
Agreed.
Wow, Thrawn is absolutely just one of the smartest beings.
Yes.
Ezra
is all feeling.
Ezra's all feeling.
Yeah.
And both of them, I think, both those characters could learn a lot from each other.
I think so too, and that's why I wanted to ask the question. Really, it's I know that we try to stay away from theorizing and what have you, but I've been thinking a lot about Thrawn lately, and I've been thinking a lot about like his role in Star Wars because he's different than any other Star Wars bad guy. Like, we all love Darth Vader, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we love the bad guy. We love my personal view is Darth Vader is the most single interesting character ever developed for cinema.
Mm-hmm.
Just from the sense of the tragedy and the whole story. Thrawn is different.
Yeah.
He's completely different than everything in Star Wars, and I've been just thinking a lot about him lately.
You cheer for him by knowing that he's on the opposite side. That you're cheering when he stops what you find out is a rebellion force.
Well, and what's really cool though is like knowing what you know about Thrawn. Like if you read the books, and he's the most calculating. He's 30 steps ahead of you at all times.
Yeah,
all times, and yet the Ghost crew gets him every time. Every time when he thinks he's got the one up on them, Ezra's one step ahead. Kanan's one step ahead.
He does let them go.
He does several times because I think he enjoys it, right? And that's one of the things that makes it fascinating. He's like, let them have their victory, right? And by the way, one of the guys, and I think you told me this, one of the people that they're looking at to portray him
is
the guy who does his voice for freaking Rebels. You know, like it can only be that voice. Like
it's too good.
It
would hurt a little bit.
It would hurt a little
not
bit.
Hear that voice, and he has the cheekbones for it.
He does have the cheekbones for it. So I mean, I think it'll work. So I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I wanted to ask that question. I promise the next time it won't be as much of as theoretical. Yeah, I wanted to kind of get your idea and your thoughts on like what you think that it could possibly be, because I think it's not going to be long before we find out. Like, I hope I think so, but I really hope that we find out what happens to Ezra. I'd like to see some continuation of that story.
Not going too far into the third book that I know that
I haven't gotten into yet.
There are a couple threads that have been left loose. What was the cadet's name that he?
Oh, Vanto.
Yeah,
Eli
Vanto. Eli Vanto.
Yeah. He never made his appearance. He never came back, did he?
You have Eli Vanto.
Is he in the third one?
Yes.
Oh, he is.
He is.
Ooh.
You have Eli Vanto, and it's just ascendancy. That's an open thread. That's an open plot line that you can take.
Cool. I see him is Ezra is actively battling him, doing what he can, but Thrawn is attempting to recreate the Empire under his.
We know how that goes.
We do.
Like, we can't have him in.
We can't.
The sequel trilogy. We can't.
No, but the beauty of it
is the sequel trilogy is also.
We have 30 years.
30 years. So there is a playground of time in there.
But they don't talk about it, and that's the thing. Like, it's interesting. Star Wars has put itself into a weird spot where the sequel trilogy really kind of wrote them into a corner in a way.
It did, because also, I mean, it's the Empire again, so you're not. It's all humans again.
Well, old British humans again, you know, and it's also it's the same thing. Like, I really want to see a version of, you know, the Empire that is not so cut and dry and evil. I see an Empire, like we mentioned in the last podcast, which will be 2 podcasts from the episode releasing on this one. Like where Dooku is in charge of the Empire, and I'd like to see a version of the Empire where Thrawn is in charge, because you have these different philosophical viewpoints yielding the same power. It's just how do you use that power? And I think that's a good, interesting discussion for later on. I think, like, let's talk about Starfleet in a couple different iterations. We see Starfleet as Starfleet, and then we see the Mirror Universe Starfleet. And then we see, stuff like that. And so I'd really be interested in kind of like talking maybe down the line about different versions of the Empire that we'd see with different leaders.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a very long conversation. No. I mean, it'd be pretty cut and dry, but at the same time, like, I think it would be interesting. So at least for me, my thought is that Thrawn is still going to Thrawn, and he's still going to be seeking out whatever he can to make the Chiss ascendancy as powerful as they could possibly be, to fight off whoever the hell it was. Because I know in Legends it was the Yuzan Vong,
right? But
the Vong are not going to be part of the Disney.
No, yeah, you get into dangerous water with the Vong.
You get into extraordinarily dangerous water with the Vong. And if you guys aren't familiar, check out the Yuzan Vong. It is a very cool storyline.
When you make villains who are resistant to, who can't use the Force, are separated from the Force.
Yeah, they're not part of the cosmic force. It's very interesting. The Jedi don't know how to approach them. They don't know how to fight them. They can't predict them. They can't do anything. And the Vong are also completely separate. Like, they do not handle warfare or nothing in the normal way. It is all swarm tactics, and it is extraordinarily fascinating.
Oh, dude. Okay, so I know nothing about the Yuzan Vong outside of. Oh, there's a parallel. There's a parallel with swarm tactics. Oh, I'm gonna teach you a little something on the High Republic.
Oh, okay.
You've got the Nihil.
So I heard that the Nihil are basically like Yuzan Vong light.
So
that's what I hear.
What's great about the High Republic is that the story's not done.
Yeah, they can go wherever they want with it.
Like, first book is open, leaves it open. The comics are leaving it open. The first and second one, it is an ongoing story. There is no end to the story.
They're not in a rush to try to like tell the story right now.
No.
Right? Awesome.
So you got I'm trying to remember the other names, but the groups of ships are called like clouds.
Oh,
I think it's Tempests is another one.
Okay.
Storms are the bigger ones, and they're all, and their ships are jagged, pointy, like rugged.
So the Nihil, Yuzan Vong light. I need to start those books. Had better be there when I get home, so I can start reading them now. Interesting.
Is like.
Have you seen the concept art for what the Yuzan Vong look like when they were going in, like when Filoni was trying to design?
No, but I know of what they end up looking like, and I already see parallels with.
Awesome. Okay, dude, that makes me so happy.
With the concept art on them. So
awesome. Oh, that's awesome. So anyway, I mean, that's kind of. Yeah, that's the question that I had, and like I said, next time it will be a little less speculative. But I've just been thinking a lot about Thrawn lately, and
yeah. So for my question, I threw this one together.
Cool.
So we've got captains.
Yeah. Well, I like it.
And they've done a lot of stuff.
Yes, they have.
I think that's a good general thing. I think that will apply to all the captains we know.
Absolutely.
There might be one or two stragglers who become captain and he goes like, okay, I'm comfortable and not do anything.
Yeah.
But the captains we see, who impacts Starfleet the most?
Ooh.
And for this, I will give you the easiest answer right now so we can discount it. And it's Burnham.
Right, yeah, no, I wasn't even, you know what's funny?
I wasn't thinking of it either.
I wasn't even thinking about Burnham. Yeah, I really didn't think about Burnham there, only just because she's now a captain.
She just became captain.
In the 33rd century.
It would be,
32nd century.
it would also be weird to add the stipulation that it only counts when they have the rank of captain.
Right.
Because then you're discounting like 3 seasons of Cisco.
Correct.
So because of that, I'm going to get Burnham out of the way because you really can't top your contribution to the Federation being saving all of sentient life.
Yes.
So I'm going to get that out of the way.
For sure.
So we can actually talk about other captains who didn't just become captains.
Well, it's actually, for a Thrown Together, that's a really good question. So I think we should talk a little bit about each captain chronologically.
So let's do Kirk.
So Kirk, in the history of Starfleet, by the time that Picard is captain, Kirk is the most famous captain that had ever been.
Yes.
Right? The youngest Starfleet captain. The first person to be promoted to captain at 35 or younger. Mm-hmm. Right? Kirk personally saved Earth a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
You got the incident where, the probe came looking for the humpback whales. As an aside, cool note, really weird.
Yeah.
When Star Trek 4 was filmed, there were roughly 4,000. I could be wrong about these exact numbers, but there were roughly around 4,000 humpback whales in existence.
Yeah.
These days, they're off the endangered species list with over 200,000 of them worldwide.
Yeah.
Fucking dope.
Yeah.
That is so cool. I love seeing that.
We got so close.
Yeah.
We got so close to just horrible.
Yeah, and it would just be a travesty. So, so Kirk, he saved, Earth several times.
You have his involvement with the peace.
The Kittimer Accords. Yeah. You have, like, the Beta Cannon, he did a lot more. There was another 5-year mission afterwards, like right after he got demoted in Star Trek 4.
Yeah.
Right after the incident of Star Trek 5. Awful. There was another 5-year mission, and they were actually, in that time, used more as escorts into undiscovered space to escort colony ships and kind of escort them out.
Okay.
So it's interesting, Kirk had a really huge part. Picard,
the biggest one of the biggest ones is First Contact with Borg.
Well, the First Contact with the Borg, solving the Borg problem several times. All of the First Contact scenarios, arbiter succession with the Klingon Empire, putting Gowron in charge, being Worf's Jadich, the first ever human Jadich. So and then everything else, like all the way up through the events of Star Trek Picard itself.
Yeah.
And if you haven't watched, spoiler alert right now, he's the one responsible for making sure that, synthetic life can continue to move forward. Like one of the episodes we just saw at Star Trek yesterday was that episode, where they're terraforming the planet, very early season 1. And they're talking about the basic forms of life, right? What does it require to have life? And it's such a great episode for such an old episode.
Yeah.
And so, you see all of that happen around Picard. Cisco.
The Romulans.
I mean, you got... I think I already know where my answer is going to go, but I need to keep talking.
Yeah.
So Cisco is interesting.
Yes.
Cisco is very fascinating. He is my favorite captain.
Yes, mine
too. Cisco is probably the most human of all the captains. His emotions are there. He is flawed. He is, he's a single father.
He has like human weaknesses.
He does, and he has no problem. Like, my favorite episode of Star Trek is the episode, where, he basically betrays and lies to the Romulans to get them to join the war against the Dominion.
Yeah.
And at the end of the episode, he's staring at the camera, rare fourth wall breaking in Star Trek. And he says, I lied. I cheated. I bribed men to kill other men. I covered it up.
Yeah.
Would I do it again? You're damn straight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of another human being, that wouldn't sacrifice everything, all of their moral values for the sake of life. Right?
Yeah.
So, the thing is with Sisko is his contributions are very much like a 4 or 5 year time span.
Yeah.
Right. But without Sisko, the Federation is overrun by the Dominion, and we don't have anything.
Yeah.
Okay? Janeway. I'm going to throw her out of the equation right now.
You are.
I have to.
Mm-hmm.
Because her story and her ship, and the thing that I've been thinking a lot about Voyager of late, it's the most standalone story.
It is the most
of all
standalone
Star
story.
Trek, and the more I think about it, the more I want to actually go back and watch it a little bit, because those stories are interesting. The stories of having the isolation, being the only Federation ship out in the middle of nowhere, like
coming across a Federation ship that
the
has
Equinox.
The Equinox that has just deteriorated in its values.
And that's exactly it. So what Janeway did was take 2 crews, blend them together, right? And then get her ship 78,000 light years home.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's all we know.
And all of the data that she brought.
Correct.
And this is a question on the biggest impact on the Federation.
Good question. Now that is very interesting, and it all depends on impact and how you look at impact. That from a scientific thing, no captain gave more data than Janeway, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
She is a scientist at her core.
Yeah.
Right. One of the things that I love about like Star Trek Prodigy, by the way, that's another show that I didn't talk about. Yeah. Prodigy is coming out. It's going to be on Paramount Plus, and it's going to be directed towards kids. But
I'm gonna watch
it too. Yeah, like I mean, it's Star Trek. It doesn't matter. But yeah, she's reprising her role as Janeway.
Yeah.
And it's all based on science. It's a science-based show for kids.
Yeah.
And she is a scientist. Like Kate Mulgrew herself is not a scientist, but very much is
in that mindset.
And so I guess from a contribution standpoint, from a scientific standpoint, I think Nolan did better.
That is a ton of exploration,
It is.
Unknowns. I mean, I specify on Starfleet because Starfleet is a giant organization,
Right.
filled with thousands of captains.
Yes.
Each of which can make their own contribution.
Right.
You have all these drops in the bucket, and it boils down to which drop of the ones we know.
Right. So, and then you have Archer, who is my choice. So it's interesting. You haven't watched Enterprise yet.
I have not.
And I don't want to talk about it too much.
Yes.
Archer, Scott Bakula, who portrayed Captain Archer, like I grew up watching Quantum Leap. It was a fantastic show. I actually will still watch NCIS, or no, it's not. Is it NCIS? Yeah, it is NCIS New Orleans, where he's the lead on that show as well. And he's a great actor. He's a great dude. He actually played Chuck's father in the show Chuck.
There's the Chuck connection.
There's a Chuck connection. And what's funny though is he was on Chuck for like 5 or 6 episodes right as soon as Enterprise finished up. So you get to see him looking exactly the same as he did on Enterprise. So I'm not going to talk too much about Archer, and it may not be a little bit fair for the question, but the reason I say it's Archer, because it'd be easy to say Picard. It'd be easy to say Kirk. And a lot of places, like I want to say Picard, I really do. But it's the reason I look at Picard is more through like what he did to save the Federation from itself.
Yes.
And that's not the question you asked. To contribute to the Federation, to
the biggest impact on the Federation.
The biggest impact on the Federation. So Archer was the first captain in Starfleet ever. He was the first one to take his ship out and explore at Warp 5. His crew and the Enterprise, they were the ones who, in essence, created the basis for how all ships ran in the future. How dealing with the Klingons, for instance, in the very first episode, dealing with the Klingons, how to deal with them, like burn them, like they say it in the very first episode. Yeah. We have not seen the Klingons since Archer.
Since Captain Archer.
In the very first episode. Yeah. Like that little parallel there, by the way, is dope. Yeah. But Archer had to bridge the Earth Defense Force, turning it into Starfleet, and eventually overseeing the beginnings of the Federation. The amount of scientific data that they were bringing in, like you'll see, like when you get into the show, like exploring strange new worlds, everything was a strange new world. They're like, you encounter like Andorians and Vulcans when they're still like at each other's throats. Before they're the founding members of the Federation, the Earth is coming in and saying, yo, motherfuckers, stop. You all need to stop and get along real quick.
Yeah.
You know, and what's interesting too is how Archer was in the main reason I say this is without the Vulcans, Starfleet and the Federation does not exist. Straight up.
Yeah.
It was through Archer that the Vulcans began to, like Archer and specifically his first officer T'Pol, they saw that humans were capable of defending themselves, defending others, and standing up for what's right. And they he and the Enterprise personally changed the narrative that the Tellarites, Andorians, and Vulcans, how they looked at Earth and how they looked at human beings. So yeah, I mean, through all of that, I mean, without the Enterprise, without Archer, you know, you don't have that. And so it's kind of a bit of a loaded question in the sense that, like, you know, you haven't seen all of the captains yet. Like, Archer's the only one you haven't seen. Archer will remind you a lot of Sisko. This is before the Prime Directive, so there is no.
So there's going to be a bit of Kirking.
Oh, he Kirks, and he Picards, and he Siskos, and he Janeways, and he, like, I thought at the time, and I'm just now kind of putting it together right now. I thought that they were looking to build a captain out of the parts of all the captains that had come before him. You know, it's easy to say Picard. It really is. I think Picard is the easiest answer to that one. Just from the sense of like
saving, like I said, saving Starfleet from itself.
Saving Starfleet from itself.
Impact. That's a big impact on the organization itself.
Right. Going back in time and saving Earth from the Borg. Right. Like all of the peace that he has negotiated throughout the galaxy. For me, Archer just embodies that, like that trailblazing spirit of the, like Kirk. Like what I like about Kirk is Kirk's belief was that there was no lose situation. Everybody can be saved. We just have to find a way of doing it. Right. That was Kirk.
Yeah.
Without fail.
Yeah.
Right. He was a womanizer. He was brash. He was arrogant. But the thing with Kirk is that all he wanted to do was save everyone at all times, and he was very good at it. Kirk, they say, was personally responsible for saving hundreds of billions of lives. Picard, they say he's responsible for saving over 1 trillion lives. Right? Sisko, same thing. Janeway, 147 crew members. You know, I mean, that's the thing. So I mean,
that's a bit harsh.
It is a bit harsh. Don't get me wrong. I really do like Janeway is a great captain.
Yeah. I mean, you have all the other worlds that she encountered.
Exactly.
So we
you know, but you know what's funny though is in typical Starfleet, they said hi and never went back. The Cerritos
Yeah.
might have to make a second contact at some point in the Delta Quadrant.
All right, guys. Hey, so I know Voyager just came back, but we have a whole
There's like
we have a toilet paper roll trail of first contacts.
could just go ahead and head
Would
on
you
out
guys
there.
mind being on a generational ship?
On the Cerritos. Oh my god, that would be amazing. Talk about the Boimler effect on that bad boy.
Oh man.
And we haven't even talked about Lower Decks too much.
It's we also only have one season.
That is so
for
true.
her,
I mean,
so-
we haven't even talked about Picard. We were that's another. But anyway, like it's easy to say Picard.
I was also prepared for Archer because while I was driving, I was thinking on, okay, look, yeah, we could say that the iPhone was revolutionary, but it wouldn't exist without the Alexander Graham Bell phone.
The telephone. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's really exciting to know that you're going into that, and then you're finishing Voyager. The ending of Voyager is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, you're about to start really... They start making some real long leaps and bounds closer to home because they have to at this point. But...
a little bit of Game of Thrones thing.
A little bit. We're not talking about Game of Thrones.
I made it through 6 of 7 seasons so far.
Yeah.
I think I'm at the point where I can start drawing some summaries and some I wishes.
Yeah.
I was really craving the same level of character development from DS9.
Yeah, and that's the problem. You know, you have the showrunners. I mean, Jerry Ryan and Brandon Braga ran Voyager. Brandon Braga started and Jerry Ryan both started. Not Jerry Ryan. Jerry Taylor.
Yes.
Taylor. Yeah. Sorry.
Ryan's.
Yeah.
Ryan.
Yeah. Exactly. Jerry Taylor and Brandon Braga and the main guy. Why am I blanking on his name? Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So anyway, they ran Voyager and it was run through UPN. And DS9 was run by people that were a little bit more outcasts in the Star Trek world. They were like the B writers and stuff like that. And so like DS9 at the time just did not, it was syndicated where Voyager was on the UPN network, right? And so DS9 just wasn't given like a whole lot of attention. So I feel like the writers just felt like they had so much more leeway with just writing better stories and better characters. I mean, think about it this way. Deep Space Nine is the perfect vessel for, pun intended, for character development.
Yeah.
Like, the ship isn't flying around all day, every day. You're not running into some...
You get the focus on the characters and develop their interactions and the complexities that come in human... I mean, that's an arrogant way of saying, but of interacting with other beings.
Well, look at the episode with specifically one of my favorite DS9 episodes, AR-357, the episode where Nog gets his leg blown off.
Yeah,
right. Not only does that episode deal with real-time PTSD of soldiers fighting. Right, this is before we went into Iraq the second time, and so. At this point, we'd done Desert Storm, but it was such a washout at that point.
Yeah.
Like, we went in, kicked ass, left, and everything was fine. We hadn't gone to Iraq and Afghanistan yet. We hadn't fought the war on terror yet. But they did such an amazing job of showing what shell shock and PTSD does. But then there was lasting ramifications.
Yeah.
Nog was dealing with that.
Yeah.
Last episode.
You had another episode of him dealing with that.
Yeah, and you still it's referenced later on.
Yeah.
That entire episode was a Nog episode.
Yeah.
He's a credited character, but he's not.
He's not a main title.
He's not a main
title.
Yeah.
Character crawl. Yeah.
Yeah, and you get this incredible character development just for the story, just for the sake of telling one story.
Yeah.
You know, and then you get the story with like Cisco and like one of the episodes we just saw the other day. BBC is amazing. Thank you, BBC, if you're listening. I've said this before.
Yes, the physical singular embodiment of BBC.
Seriously, you're freaking amazing.
Having DS9 in the mornings.
Yeah, like we get into work and it's DS9 and then it's next gen all day, and like everybody else just is fine with it. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, I give everyone at work on Mondays a break, and I don't have it on.
Nice.
I mean, I have it on, but I don't say anything when they change it, and they end up changing it relatively early, or at least until after DS9 is done.
Exactly. Well, they won't change it on me. So, but. So the episode that I saw was the episode where Cassidy gets busted for helping the Maquis.
Yeah.
And the episode where Eddington, betrays Cisco.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, such like you would consider to be such a minor episode, right? Cisco goes on a tirade and literally scorched earth going after Eddington.
It takes one or two episodes for like 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Before that's resolved.
Yeah. And these are Eddington and Cassidy are like not Eddington.
They're not main.
They're not main characters,
yeah.
But they both get character development in that episode. And Cassidy gets a ridiculous amount of character development over the course of the show. And like the one person that doesn't get much, and I'm kind of realizing it these days, is Jake. He doesn't get very much character development. It's a little bit sad, but. Yeah. His character development is handled in a different way, in more of the sense we get to watch him become a man and more mature, as opposed to like seeing his story change over time.
Like, if anything, like if this was in the Star Wars story team, we'd get a young adult novel starring Jake Sisko.
Exactly, and
I mean.
Fine, please
do that.
Do it.
Actually, do that, please.
Yeah, Sirach Lofton is actually he runs a podcast and he still talks about Star Trek all the time. He's a great Twitter follow as well, so definitely do.
I really like the characters on Voyager.
Dude, you're gonna love
nine is the closest. Is probably my favorite.
Yeah,
and
not surprising.
That's also because. She's the closest
she gets,
to hold a candle, but they don't really hold up a candle to DS9.
She gets more character development in Picard than she does in most of Voyager, over 4 seasons, and so I mean
the theme, I like the theme.
Yeah.
It does it just has that issue with being a combination of TOS and DS9.
Yeah, but it's more TOS than it is DS9.
But because you're playing around with new worlds, you are more likely to explore those new worlds versus the characters who live in that world.
Exactly. That's the thing too, is like there was a tweet, I think it was Star Wars Explained actually that tweeted it out. It was just this random. I sent it to Matt immediately.
I need to find that one.
If I can find it, I'm gonna send it to him, and we might pop it up on the screen for the YouTube show. It's just a picture of this random background character, and the tweet was, "We know nothing about this guy because Star Trek knows how to not do that."
Yeah.
Knows when to stop.
Knows when to stop.
Yeah, because Star Trek knows when to stop. This is exactly what he said, and so, and that is so true. Because the Star Trek universe is so huge, and that's the other thing too. Is like they're now calling it the Star Trek universe. It's not just Star Trek; it is the Star Trek universe, which is very interesting.
Because now you're playing with multiple time periods at this point. Now,
exactly. So. I mean, they're literally like when we were watching. Like, when I was watching Star Trek back in the day, it was, like, when we went back with Enterprise, that was the first time, like, what?
Yeah, no.
It was a big problem.
You were going in chronological order, and then you go backwards. It's like, okay, but you can still go chronologically.
Yeah, we got 15 years of it. Like, we got 15 straight years of progression on the story, and then they go back.
And so, calling this the Star Trek universe now
makes so much more sense.
Because now you're playing with the 33rd century. You're playing with
the 25th century and the 23rd century. Yeah.
Voyage has been good.
Yeah.
Voyage has been good.
I'm regretting not doing it, really.
Yeah, I mean it's been a good run. I think I'd put this somewhere around next gen.
Yeah.
Probably a little below next gen.
Yeah.
It's just
The characters aren't as good.
yeah.
Really.
I mean,
what it comes down to. Neelix fucks it up for me.
I don't get the dislike for Neelix.
Yeah, I know. No, many people do. I've got a problem. I've got a problem.
You too. Yeah, I mean, it's been a good run.
Yeah.
And I have enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to taking a break and then Enterprise.
For sure. Yeah, and that's the thing. So, well, I got to say that was a really great question for kind of a throw together. I definitely would say that Archer had the biggest impact, followed, I would say, if I were to rank my captains,
Yeah.
I would say Archer, Picard, Kirk, Sisko, Janeway.
Okay.
Burn them.
Burn them as
Actually,
mentioned.
you know what? We haven't talked Pike. Pike is.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk
until we,
Pike.
but we just don't know. Pike is like one of my favorite captains.
Yeah.
Like Anson Mount is fantastic. I can't wait to see more of him.
Same.
I wouldn't be surprised if he takes top spot.
Yeah.
By the end,
Yeah.
but Sisko, I'll always be Captain Sisko fan for all day. So great question, dude.
Sweet.
Seriously.
All right.
Well, cool. Well, he's telling me that his battery is getting low. I'm plugged into a laptop, so I can talk all day. We really want to thank you for listening. You know, it's we seem to have kind of found our format for how we're going to do things, and it's kind of working out for us. We welcome any feedback, of course. Send some comments down below. We are on Twitter, Facebook sometimes, SoundCloud, and obviously here on YouTube. We really do appreciate your time. So, without further ado, let's fly.